got to sit in his room with no TV or nothing. They wouldn't put a TV in there for some reason. They said no in that home. Yeah. Anyway. We'll have to have a regular deacons meeting the first Wednesday of next month. We'll figure out some way to be able to do that so that we can.
There's only 5 of us. It's spaced.
So that we can put together a plan so that we know how we're going to handle the different stages.
Yeah.
Whenever he puts those into place. May still be a while, but we should have a plan. There's also a couple of things I'd like to do for Mother's Day and Father's Day. It'll be a little bit different, special, and I'd like your help.
No problem. I believe it's time.
I think so.
Mic on, away we go.
I'll try to remember during the service, turn them off. Then we can remove that if we need to.
Yeah. Yeah, you can walk in first.
Is that me?
Maybe your sweater, like, oh, it's not a sweater, it's up there. It's rubbing your.
I have it in my pocket like I normally do. Okay. We'll give it a try. If not, we can just use the regular mic. So, all right, I'm ready. Good morning, and welcome to Calvary Baptist Church to our adult Sunday school class. Thank you for joining us this morning, or as you listen later on. We're in this Sunday school class. We're tackling the book of Proverbs, a topical study from the book of wisdom from Proverbs. And we've been looking at, over the last few weeks, relationships. What Proverbs has to say about different relationships, how we are supposed to interact, and wisdom to be able to have and to deal with relationships properly. The book of Proverbs is, as I have said before, one of the greatest books that illustrates the love that God has for us each and every day. Proverbs is meant to be a guide for us to make decisions wisely and to live godly in this life. And it showcases how invested God is in our lives because he went through the effort to give us this much wisdom, to give us this much guidance. So I love the book of Proverbs. That's one of the main reasons, because it is so practical and because it is such an exposition of God's love and God's interest in our daily lives. The other reason is because it is so practical. As you look through, there is just so much that is easily available for us to have. As it says, and as we've looked at before, when talking about wisdom, it's crying out in the streets. The first portion of Proverbs it sees wisdom as a woman who goes out into the streets and calls out to people, wanting them to come and to find wisdom and to have wisdom. So the book of Proverbs is accessible for everyone, and it is just such a marvelous book. But relationships. Looking at the principles of relationships. Last week and previous, we've been looking at family relationships, and we're going to continue with that. We looked at the husband and the wife and a few things last week, and this week we're looking at parenting and discipline. And so we're going to tackle a few of these things this week. And the book of Proverbs, as I get into this, is most geared toward the parenting relationship, since the book was written by Solomon specifically to his son. So the entirety of the book is a parenting book. It is Solomon as a father writing these things down, writing his wisdom down so that his son would have that and he would be able to teach his son the wisdom of life, how to make decisions and everything in it. And so there's a number of verses that kind of bring that out. The first one, obviously, at the very, very beginning. Proverbs 1, verses 8 and 9. My son, hear the instruction of thy father, forsake not the law of thy mother, for they shall be an ornament of grace unto thy head, and chains about thy neck. In regard to parenting, this is a marvelous book. It is a book from a father to his son, urging his son to listen to him, to listen to the wisdom that he has. A couple other verses that tie in directly that echo that same sentiment. Proverbs 6, verse 20 through 24. My son, keep thy father's commandment, and forsake not the law of thy mother. Bind them continually upon thine heart, tie them about thy neck. When thou goest, it shall lead thee. When thou sleepest, it shall keep thee. When thou awakest, it shall talk with thee. For the commandment is a lamp, the law is light, and reproofs of instruction are the way of life. Keep thee from the evil woman, from the flattery of the tongue of a strange woman. And so it continues and delves into another topic as well. But the book is geared toward parenting, to give from a father, to give his son what he needs to be able to make wise decisions in life. As a child, and all of us are someone's children, it is important, it is incredibly valuable for us to listen to our parents in general, and also specifically here to listen to the wisdom of Solomon as he instructs children. So there's a tremendous value in listening to the wisdom, and as you can see in these verses, the benefit that goes with listening to our parents and listening to the wisdom that they have, and listening to Proverbs as well. The benefits to that are tremendous. Bind them about thy neck, and always, have them with you, and it will lead you when you're sleeping. It'll give you rest. When you wake up, it's going to give you direction. There is so much that can be gained by listening to our parents' guidance and by listening to wisdom. Proverbs 23:22. Hearken unto thy father that begat thee, and despise not thy mother when she is old. One of the things that we need to remember about parenting and about being a child is, in the book of Proverbs, there isn't a time when a person ceases to be someone's child and becomes an adult that doesn't need to listen. There is never a time when we become adults that don't need to pay attention, that don't need to listen to the advice, to the wisdom of our parents. There's never a time when we graduate from being someone's child, and that we should ever disrespect our parents by not listening to them. So there's a tremendous amount of value in Proverbs. The whole book is geared toward this parenting relationship as Solomon teaches his son. Now we're going to start off with a couple of general verses here. Proverbs 10 is the first one, Proverbs 10 and verse 1. And this one applies to both parents and children. There's a great deal that it says here. The Proverbs of Solomon: a wise son maketh a glad father, but a foolish son is the heaviness of his mother. Relationships are obviously tied together, and In a relationship, both people have an impact on the other, and that is especially true when it comes to children. Children have a direct effect on the emotional health of the parents. Being a good, involved parent is an investment in your future happiness. There's so many people think that they can outsource the responsibility of parenting. But by being a parent, by involving yourself in parenting, by making that a commitment, you are investing in your future happiness. Because what happens to your child has a direct effect on the emotional health of you as a parent. So if you don't discipline, if you don't parent your child, you're going to be the one that carries that with you. It's going to have an effect on you emotionally. It is going to affect your health. A wise son maketh a glad father, but a foolish son is the heaviness of his father. Now, there's a lot more that we can say about that verse and how a child impacts both parents in a different way. But I feel like that's a very involved conversation, and we're not going to get into that this morning. The next one is Proverbs 14:26. Proverbs 14:26. In the fear of the Lord is strong confidence, and his children shall have a place of refuge. The other thing that impacts, or there's several things that impact a child. Not just your parenting style, and not just kind of the things that you do, but one of the things that has a tremendous impact on a child is your relationship with God. That has a huge impact on your child. You cannot hope to have the greatest and most positive impact if your relationship with God is struggling, because that impacts your kids. It is a detriment to your children if you do not fear God. In the fear of the Lord is strong confidence, and his children shall have a place of refuge. The fear of the Lord is not only something that is the beginning of wisdom and that benefits your character and your life and everything about how you do things to give you a proper perspective on life, but when you fear the Lord, that has an impact on your children in creating for them a safe place where they can understand properly the world, and they can understand that and have confidence in you as a parent. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and it also is one of the foundations of having a confident child. You are investing in your child's physical and emotional well-being when you fear the Lord. In the fear of the Lord is strong confidence, and his children shall have a place of refuge. It not only means that your relationship with God has a benefit onto your children, but them being able to see the fear of the Lord in you, them being able to see a proper relationship with God, will build in them an opportunity to have a jump start in their relationship with God, to properly understand that relationship. So it is a detriment to your children if you do not fear God. There's something else that also has a great impact on your children, and that is in Proverbs 20 and verse 7. Proverbs 20 and verse 7. A just man walketh in his integrity. His children are blessed after him. Not only does your relationship with God impact your children, but your character has an impact on your children. A just man walks in his integrity, one that is just and upright, one who doesn't want to do evil, but who wants to do things well, and who has integrity in life and in speech. That creates an atmosphere, it creates benefits for children. The benefits are twofold, as we can see here. First, they see a good example. So when they look at your life, they see a just man that is full of integrity, and they can follow that example. They're blessed after him. And also, there is a benefit that comes from a parent's good name. A strong, integrity-filled man creates a character that will benefit his children. So your character has an effect on your children. The benefit's twofold. They see a good example, and they benefit from his good name. So both of those things are very key and have an impact on your kids, your relationship with God and your character. Without even having to open your mouth, two things can have a tremendous impact on your children. Proverbs now, 17 and verse 6. This is a verse that we've covered before, and as happens when we deal with Proverbs topically, we will cover some verses more than once. Proverbs 17:6. And I've mentioned this one before. Children's children are the glory of old men, and the glory of children are their fathers. It is natural for a child to want to be proud of his father. It is built into us to want to be proud of our parents, specifically of our fathers. Don't be a father that causes your children to be ashamed of you. Don't let your character be such where they don't feel that they can be proud of you. Don't let your actions destroy the joy that a child has in being proud of his father. Children want to be proud of their fathers. So don't be a father that causes your children to be ashamed of you. Next, Proverbs 19 and verse 13. A foolish son is the calamity of his father, and the contentions of a wife are a continual dropping. This verse identifies two things that are very difficult to deal with. And the first one is a foolish son. And a fool is someone who does not have the good sense to know that they should listen to God. And it's a very, very strong word. Most often it is used of the unsaved. They don't have the sense to know that they should listen to God. And so they turn their back on him. That's a foolish person. The idea and the principle that is kind of being drawn out here is, if you don't think it's important to teach your children about God, you're the one who's going to end up paying the price. As we've mentioned before, what happens to your children has an emotional impact on you as a parent, whether you want it to or not. Whether you think that you just don't care about your kids and you just let them go out there and do whatever they want, it still has an impact on you emotionally. And if you don't think it's important to teach your children about God, to invest in them, that they should listen to God, to teach them that they should be obedient to him and that they should follow his commands, if you don't teach them the fear of the Lord, then you will pay the price for that. If you think that Christianity is just something that you can kind of throw off to the side and, kids should be free to make their own decisions, then you're the one who's going to have to pay for that. Now, I'm not saying that you're forcing your children to do something or you're forcing them to believe something, but it is in a parent's responsibility to show their children the fear of the Lord and to help them and do the best that they can to help them understand who God is and what he's done so that they listen to him. You don't want your kids to be fools, to know who God is, but to not even care to listen to him. I could go into a lot of other different things, but I'm committed this morning to not giving you just my opinions, but to make sure that I'm sticking with what the Bible says. So I'm not going to give you any opinions about that. going to give you just the principle that if you don't think it's important to teach your children about God, you're the one that's going to end up paying the price. A foolish son is the calamity of his father. Now we're going to come to a topic that a lot of people disagree on and a lot of people are very emotional about. We're going to deal with discipline. Proverbs says a lot about discipline and how it should be done and how parenting and discipline should be done. And because this is a very touchy subject with very emotional opinions, I shall endeavor, as I've written here, to keep my opinions to myself and simply present to you what these verses say. So that's what we're going to try to do. There's a number of verses that we're going to deal with, going to read for you, and just tell you what the verses say about discipline. Because Proverbs does have some direction and some wisdom to give to us. So that's what we're going to hope to do, and I put the verses up here for you. Proverbs 13:24. He that spareth his rod hateth his son, but he that loveth him chasteneth him betimes. A rod is exactly what it says. It's a thin piece of wood, not like a 2x4 piece of wood, but like a very thin piece of wood, like a switch. That's what that means. That first portion makes it clear that withholding discipline is not a sign of love. Permissiveness with children is equal to hatred. Not disciplining your children is not a sign of love. It's as if you didn't love them. Now, betimes there at the end doesn't mean often. Chasing your children, don't spare the rod often. That's not what it means. It means promptly. If you love your children, you will discipline them promptly. Discipline should be done promptly. And to withhold discipline, to be permissive with children, is not a sign of love. It is as if you don't love them. That's Proverbs 13:24. Proverbs 19:18. Chasten thy son while there is hope, and let not thy soul spare for his crying. While there is hope there in that first phrase is a way of saying discipline your children while they're young and teachable. If you wait to discipline and instruct your kids until they're older, it's going to be too late. While there is hope is a way of saying discipline your children while they are young and teachable. And let not thy soul spare for his crying makes it sound like you don't care if they cry, like steel yourself to their crying, don't care about it, like it doesn't matter. But that's not the case. The idea is that discipline is not easy, but that it should be appropriate. Discipline should not be easy for you. If you find it easy to spank, for instance, if it doesn't have any impact on you, then be very careful. Discipline should be done carefully and it should be done appropriately. Proverbs 23:13 and 14. Withhold not correction from the child, for if thou beatest him with the rod, he shall not die. Thou shalt beat him with the rod, and shalt deliver his soul from hell. Now, there's one thing that I want to make absolutely clear, that the Bible makes absolutely clear. Discipline is never a way for you to display your anger for a mistake or for a child having done something wrong. If your discipline comes out of the anger in the moment when you don't like that they made a mistake and you want to hit them, that's not right. Discipline, the motivation for discipline is to help a child avoid a premature death, which comes from not understanding sin and indulging in it. And it saves his soul from hell. The motivation of discipline is to help a child avoid a premature death and save his soul from hell. If the motivation for discipline is, I am angry with you, therefore I will hit you, that is not discipline. That is you beating a child. That is you hitting a child for no reason. Discipline should not be done out of anger. And when it says beatest him, it doesn't mean that you just go at it. It's meaning discipline. Discipline is never a way for you to display your anger for a mistake or for a child having done wrong. Understand the motivation for discipline. There's a lot of parents that haven't understood the motivation for discipline. And they have left their children scarred because they have beat them for no reason and not disciplined them because they love them and are investing in their lives. Know the difference. Proverbs 29:15. The rod and reproof give wisdom, but a child left to himself bringeth his mother to shame. There are many ways to discipline. What Proverbs is saying is not that any time a child has done something wrong, you get out a switch and you hit them. Discipline, there are many ways to discipline. Spanking or pulling out a switch is not the only way. But a child who is not disciplined, the point of this verse, the principle here, is not that a child who is not disciplined, who is just left on his own, will cause shame. That's the principle. There are many ways to discipline, but a child who is not disciplined, who is just left on his own, will cause shame. So there's a time for reproof, and there is a time for corporal punishment. That's what this verse is saying. In Proverbs 29:17, correct thy son, and he shall give thee rest. Yea, he shall give delight unto thy soul. As I've made mention, your children have a direct emotional effect on your life. Discipline is and always should be done with the understanding of what motivates it and understanding the purpose behind it. It is not to show them your anger. It is to help them understand the consequences of sin. Discipline is not always corporal. Sometimes it's reproof. But discipline is necessary for a child. There are many ways, but discipline is necessary. Correct thy son, and he shall give thee rest. Yea, he shall give delight unto thy soul. So in summary, just a few things. If you don't discipline your children, it's like you don't love them. It's as if you don't love them. According to these verses, discipline should involve corporal punishment and verbal correction. There is a proper time for both. Discipline is not about punishment. It's about instruction. The purpose of discipline is not to punish them because they've done something wrong. It is to discipline them and instruct them in what is right. And permissive parents turn out shameful children to themselves. They themselves will bear the shame. if they do not discipline. The last quote that I often finish with is, "The aim of the book is to help us acquire and apply God's wisdom to the decisions and activities of daily life." God is invested in your life, in the lives of your children, in their welfare, and in your ability as a parent. God has provided for us all the wisdom that we need to be able to live life properly, to have wisdom to make decisions wisely, and to be able to glorify Him in each situation. I'll finish by saying this one thing. I have a lot of opinions, but God's way is always better than my opinion. God bless you, folks. We'll see you later.